So, Sonic Lost World came out recently amid a flurry of reviews that have caused quite a stir. A lot of people are outraged over the low scores the game's been getting, with most reviews awarding Sonic's latest title somewhere between 5 and 7 out of 10. Lost World's been hyped like crazy, and many were expecting it to be one of the best games the Hedgehog's had in years, so it's understandable that there's a bit of a backlash. I'm actually kind of upset at the reviews as well, but not because of the score. It's the way the reviews are conducted and written. See, I've gotten my hands on the Wii U version of the game a couple of times at various events and conventions so far, and it is definitely not perfect. However, it does have a lot going for it, and getting to play it sort of opened my eyes to some of the weaker points made in these reviews, mostly from major outlets such as IGN or Game Informer. Granted, I haven't played the full game yet, seeing as how it hasn't been released in North America, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. And just to reiterate, I'm not saying the game should have a higher score on Metacritic. I actually agree with some of the critical reviews so far, but I'll get to that later. Now, the review that initially peeved me upon reading it was the Game Informer review. The score was a 5, but that's not what I want to discuss. What bothered me was the absolute childishness on display. First of all, from the very start, even the title of the review, Lost and Damned, sets a negative tone, and seemingly every single verb choice in the article is a negative, chiding one. Even the elements of the game that the reviewer says are well done are communicated in a negative, bitter way that's honestly just pretty unprofessional. Even the music, which seems to be the only point of praise in the sidebar, is undermined by being summed up as essentially stealing from Mario Galaxy, attributing its successes to another game entirely. Another tactic which is surprisingly common throughout the reviews. I'm not saying that you can't be critical of the game. Of course, you don't have to like it. But the entire voice of the review makes it sound like the game is simply hell on earth to play. Having played the demo, I can guarantee that is false. However, what strikes me as odd is that, in comparison, Sonic 06 was awarded a 6.8 by Game Informer. Of course, I'm not saying that they have to have a consistent scale. The review was done by somebody entirely different, and everything changes over time. But for a game that is known to literally just not function, to score 20% higher than a game that actually has an intact system is kind of strange to me. I have some guesses as to why this is, but first let's talk about some other interesting reviews. Now, IGN has a review that's less mocking, but actually more disappointing to me for one reason. Almost every single complaint is about how Sonic didn't move as fast as he expected, or didn't feel the way he had grown accustomed to. The entire problem with the game seemed to be that it wasn't what he wanted. To a normal gamer, sure, that's completely justified. There are a lot of great, well-made games that just don't appeal to me that I won't play. But that doesn't mean they should have been made differently, and it doesn't mean I'm going to go around and say that they're bad games. Now, as somebody who reviews games for a living and has an impact on the success of games in the industry, an ability to look at a game objectively is incredibly important. Sega really tried to change things in Lost World. It wasn't supposed to feel like past games. It's really weird that so many of the reviewers knock the game for being derivative, but then despise it for the ways it doesn't emulate past games in the series. I mean, IGN gave Halo 4 a 9.8 and called it revolutionary. All it did was change what the guns look like. Revolution. Another odd thing about all of these incredibly negative reviews is that they all kind of contradict each other. IGN says Sonic never gets fast enough for the gameplay to work, and GameSpot says he moves way too fast. IGN says that he wall runs on everything, and other reviewers say that he can't really get him to wall run in the first place. After reading these reviews and having played the game myself, I honestly think that this is a case of the reviewers simply being bad at the game and not wanting to adapt. Now, when I first started playing the demo, I was god-awful at it. I couldn't even jump over the spikes. Because of the changes to his speed, his jump arc, his inertia, it felt really awkward. But you know what? I adapted. I figured out that Sonic wasn't going to slide to a stop or take time building speed like in the other games. In the course of, 10 minutes at the most, I changed the way I played the game, and I had a much easier time because of it. And then I found myself having fun. When I played it their way, it was perfectly paced, and it forced me to make split-second decisions all throughout the level that either rewarded me with speed or punished me by impeding my progress. Is it hard? Oh, definitely. It's actually the hardest Sonic game I've played since the originals on the Genesis. But it was significantly easier when I wasn't trying to play it like a straight-shot mad dash that Generations and Colors were. I actually went faster when I focused on taking out the enemies and taking advantage of the environment than when I tried to blaze through it. Speed wasn't just a given anymore, it was a reward, and it was new and exciting. Sure, I mean, it was difficult, but that was in comparison to the slew of easier, less rewarding games that we get these days. The review over at Destructoid, I think, is actually the best review to date. At first, Jim Sterling wasn't a huge fan of the game. He says the controls and level designs ate at him, it was weird and awkward, but he actually put in the time to adapt, and he found himself really enjoying it more and more as he went on, and he found a lot of value in replaying the levels. He kept himself open to the experience that Sega was actually trying to give, and he wound up enjoying himself. Now, it's still not a completely positive review. There are some elements of the game that I didn't even know about that I agree are pretty stupid after hearing him talk about it. Having to collect animals to advance is really unnecessary and could be a pain in the neck. And I definitely believe that the boss battles and a lot of the levels aren't well designed. That's pretty much a given in Sonic. Even the original games had some frustrating and irritating levels. Voice acting, story, these things are always bad in recent Sonic games, and I'm not expecting them to be better here. But thank God that somebody was willing to actually look at the game for what it was instead of what they wanted it to be. The review that made me decide to do this video was the Polaris review. Polaris. Polar bears! This is why.
Because that's what this series is all about, and what Sonic's always been about, running really, really fast.
Really? I find this incredibly interesting, how people call back to the original games to try and show that Sonic should be faster now. If anything, the original games were more careful in plotting than the recent ones, making you wait and platform and having careful movements. A chemical plant, anyone? He does have a point that Sonic's big hook is the high speeds you can reach, but he's incorrect in assuming that that means the speed is something you're supposed to experience the entire time. The speed is a reward for playing well, for thinking quickly. It's not given to you by running down a straight path unobstructed for hundreds of feet. Those long, purely speed-boosting segments really got popularized with the 3D games. I remember stages like Metal Harbor and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Once you could put the camera behind Sonic and see far ahead of you forever, you could do those really long segments of just dashing through the level and getting through as quickly as possible. And there is an element of that to Lost World still, but if anything, Lost World is still more like the classic games than even Generations was.
You're never going to feel like you're getting good at Sonic, or even good at this particular Sonic game. You're just memorizing the levels and how they work.
Really? Because, let me tell you something, I didn't have to get good at Colors or Generations to beat them. Not even close. And the only way you could get good at Sonic 06 is if you were able to hack in and fix the game's programming. So, I think the lack of getting good is more out of a lack of trying than anything. Because I improved in a few minutes.
Nice. Yeah, that was all talent.
And Jim Sterling improved, and it vastly changed his opinion due to it. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some flaws in the gameplay. As I said before, I totally believe that some levels aren't designed well, and I'm sure that there's a few gimmicks that don't really translate very well. The casino level? Not a big fan of it. But to say that the system as a whole doesn't work, to say that the new running system doesn't work, I think is just blinding yourself to what the game is trying to offer. So I guess the question that I'm trying to answer then is why we have all of these reviews that state that the gameplay doesn't work right, with vastly different and sometimes contradicting reasons as to why. Honestly, I think it's due to them just not caring. Several reviewers have admitted to not having finished a game before reviewing it, and I think that's largely the case with Lost World. I think a lot of people started it, got frustrated, and stopped. A lot of the reviews don't mention a lot of fairly important gameplay elements, and they just kind of rant about how it doesn't feel right. Reviewers nowadays have it easy. They get a lot of games that all look and feel the same. They don't have to play the next Assassin's Creed very long to know how they're going to score it. It feels like the other ones, and nothing goes majorly wrong, so they're good to go. Slap an 8 or something on it and say it's a good entry. And then when a game comes along that actually asks the player to invest time, like Lost World or Wonderful 101, it's annoying. And yeah, like I said, Lost World isn't out yet. I haven't played the whole thing. Maybe it is a terrible game. But Wonderful 101 I do have, and I'm playing, and it was insanely hard at first, but I got used to it, and it was very, very rewarding because of how original it is. But none of the reviews gave it a shot. Now, it's also come out recently that big developers, primarily American, would pay off entertainment magazines and websites to give good press and reviews. I honestly think that our games industry, or at least as far as the reviews go, is in a pretty sad state, and it isn't being fueled primarily for a love of gaming or a desire to see it grow as a medium. I'll get Lost World when it comes out, and I'll review it, and I'll probably have some issues with it. I'm guessing it'll probably be an 8 at best, but I'm gonna at least give it a shot, because any development team who puts their time and effort into creating something deserves to have it appreciated for what it is. I'm sorry, if I reviewed Super Mario RPG and got pissed because it wasn't a side-scroller, I would have given it a terrible review, and I would have totally neglected everything that game was trying to do. So all I'm saying is this: at least try out the demo. See if the gameplay interests you. Because most of these reviews are really just subjective and opinionated, and they're not giving you a good objective idea of what's in the game so you can actually make the decision for yourself. So please, try the demo. At least give it a chance. You don't gotta buy it. Maybe it's gonna be a terrible game. Who knows? But we at least deserve to give it a chance. Oh, and to address all the comparisons to Mario Galaxy, shove off. Seriously? Sonic's been doing gravity gimmicks and disconnected level design for a long time, and he controls nothing like Mario. Get your head out your ass. Thanks for listening, and please leave comments below. If you disagree with me, I'd love to talk about it and see where this goes. Discussion can only be a good thing. If you want to check out any of my other videos, do so. I got no objection to it. That's why they're here. You want to see more like my writing and just more, generally good game coverage in general, head over to GameNinja.com. Pretty good site. I like it. That's why I work there. All right, everybody. Peace. Let me know how you feel about this. I love you.